With your leave, Madam Speaker, I rise in this honorable House to speak on the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Pensions Amendment Bill 2025, which had its first reading on 17th April 2025. Madam Speaker, this morning is a historical morning. It's a morning that the workers of St. Kitts and Nevis, specifically our GAE workers, specifically our civil servants and those who work in the civil service, that they have been waiting for many, many decades, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if we were to reflect and to understand why this legislation is so important, we would reflect on that January morning in 1932, when the labor movement in St. Kitts and Nevis was born. It is a movement that is dedicated to the upliftment and advancement of all of our workers. And in our gallery today, Madam Speaker, I want to specifically recognize a number of these workers who are here with us. Civil servants and specifically GAE workers, government auxiliary employees, as if they are some sort of second-class workers in the civil service, Madam Speaker. But in this government, there is no first class and no second class. The GAE workers deserve their benefits as well. And so, Madam Speaker, I want to recognize those who people only remember when they don't work. I want to recognize the crossing guards, because when they don't show up, all of a sudden people realize that their children's lives are at risk. Parks and beaches workers, people only recognize when the verges are overgrown. The maids at the hospital, Madam Speaker, they're only recognized when you're at the hospital and your lunch may not come on time. The cleaners in offices who are often overlooked, they're only remembered if he or she were to get sick and the office is not clean. Then they ask about the cleaners. Those who maintain the drains, nobody remembers them, Madam Speaker, unless they don't show up and the drain becomes untidy and creates stench. The messengers, nobody remembers them unless you let us stay on your desk for days and you want it to be delivered. The school bus drivers only are noticed if they don't show up on a day and your child cannot get to school. School meal workers who serve lunch, who cook the lunch, nobody would notice unless they don't show up. But Madam Speaker, this is about to change. There are no second-class workers in this civil service under this administration. They are as important as anyone else and as important as me, because without them I can't be here. And I don't confuse myself with that. And so I want to say to them this morning, this is your house. Welcome to Parliament, and this bill is about you, to bring justice to you, and to say once and for all that we might be different in our work life, but we are equal. And difference does not mean unequal. So I want to honor you all this morning for the tremendous work that you have been doing over the years to make sure that this country continues to move upward and onward. Madam Speaker, I also want to recognize the task force that has been working on this, led by the head of service, Ms. Thelma Richards, who has been working hard over these past months, maybe over a year, to put this together. So I want to thank her, and she's here this morning, and the team that has worked so tirelessly hard to make sure that this comes to Parliament. I want to thank the AG and the AG's office. I want to thank the actuary who actually looked at the numbers and determined what we can do to make sure that this pension is implemented, it is feasible and sustainable. And so this has been a work where many have contributed to make sure that our GAE workers would see justice. Madam Speaker, that is why I say it is with great pleasure to really read this bill this morning and to debate it. As I said, today is a historic day in this Parliament. The Pensions Amendment Bill 2025 is a historic statement of who we are as a people and what kind of future we are determined to build. A future as a sustainable island state. This bill tells every government auxiliary employee, every street or office cleaner, every crossing guard, as mentioned before, that we see you, we value you, and we will honor your contributions when your working days are over. Madam Speaker, the paradigm shift, let me explain the old versus the new. But I must speak of where we are coming from, because this was promised to the GAE workers for many, many years, Madam Speaker. One of the most egregious things that took place was that the calculation for the gratuity for the GAE workers was reduced significantly by the then Minister of Finance, member for number 7, and the Unity Administration. Imagine these are the persons who work for the least in our service. And they said that their gratuity was too much and reduced their gratuity. Madam Speaker, one of the first things we did when we got in office was to restore the correct gratuity calculation for the GAE workers. And I will get into some numbers, Madam Speaker. For example, if a GAE worker were to receive under the old calculation that came from the previous Labour administration, if they were to receive $20,000, under the Timothy Harris administration, they would only receive $3,000. And that is why we change it back and say, no, put it back up to $20,000. Madam Speaker, that is how you empower people. Empowerment is not feeling pity for people. This is not about pity. This is about people who have worked and they must get what they deserve. That is what this is about. That is why this is about justice for the GAE workers and other pensioners, Madam Speaker. Far too long, our pension system, Madam Speaker, it was outdated. It originated in 1947, 78 years ago. Hardly any of the present GAE workers or pensioners is at that age. Madam Speaker, I look around and I don't think any in the audience is that age. They look young. Kitchens are aged nicely, you know. Divisions too. You can't tell the age by their face, you know. But I believe none of them is 78 today. Madam Speaker, it was a non-contributory, it was unpredictable and unequal. It placed an unbearable burden on the public purse while denying thousands of hard-working men and women, especially our GAEs, the security of knowing that after a lifetime of service, they would have something to fall back on. Today, Madam Speaker, we say no more. This bill ushers in a new era, a contributory pension plan that is structured, fair, and sustainable. It brings certainty, it brings equity, and it brings peace of mind. Madam Speaker, I can see that there are persons who are now 62 in the audience, and they don't want to retire because they are afraid that they will not get a pension. And when they go home, they would only have to live on Social Security, which means they have a chance of retiring in poverty. We can't allow our workers to, I would say, retire in poverty. It is a fact, Madam Speaker. The Pre-Existing Pensions Act, CAP 2206, primarily operated on a non-contributory model where the government fully funds public service pensions. Over the years, this model has proven financially unsustainable, leading to increasing liabilities and challenges in pension payments, key issues necessitating reform. And what these reforms are, Madam Speaker: rising pension costs, as the financial burden of pension on the government, and any government, will increase. Lack of a dedicated pension fund, Madam Speaker. This is why this is so sustainable and secure, because we are forming a fund. You have the Social Security Fund and other types of fund. This is a pension fund in the civil service. And this would ensure that pension payments be sourced from the fund, from general revenue, making them less vulnerable when you can take them from multiple sources, Madam Speaker. Inconsistent eligibility criteria, as the existing system lacks uniformity with the different retirement ages and entitlements of different categories of public servants. The Pensions Amendment Bill 2025, however, is grounded in sound legislative and financial principles that promote, and these are what they promote, Madam Speaker. This is what this bill promotes. It promotes financial sustainability, as the transition to a contributory model reduces the financial burden on government while ensuring adequate pension funding. The establishment of a pensions fund ensures that contributions are invested and managed separately from general government revenue. That is critically important, Madam Speaker. It's separate and apart to the government coffers. It is in a fund. And that makes it less vulnerable, more sustainable, and more resilient to shocks and changes, Madam Speaker. Another one, equity and inclusion, as the amendment expands pension coverage to include government auxiliary employees, addressing long-standing disparities. The new system ensures uniform retirement ages and fair eligibility criteria. Madam Speaker, it also ensures administrative efficiency, as the bill clarifies pension eligibility, payments, and refunds, reducing administrative ambiguities. The Accountant General, and he's here, Mr. Bratcher, who has worked tirelessly hard on this one, and I want to thank him for his hard work, and is tasked with managing the pensions fund, ensuring accountability and transparency. Madam Speaker, the other one is long-term stability, as the mandatory actuarial reviews will be conducted to assess the financial health of the pensions fund every 3 years. The bill incorporates investment guidelines to optimize fund growth. Madam Speaker, these policy changes align with regional and international best practices, strengthening the resilience of the pension system. Madam Speaker, the bill by itself, I wish to briefly review section of the bill so that our people can understand the new paradigm shift. Madam Speaker, if we were to look at the bill that was circulated before today, definition of minister in section 2, a new definition was added. Minister means the Minister of Finance. This clears up any confusion about which minister is responsible for managing the pension laws. That minister is myself. Or the interpreter? Okay. Madam Speaker, number 2. As we look at the bill, replacements of parts 3 and 4, these entire sections of the Act were removed and replaced to modernize and simplify how the contributory pension plan works. The goal is to make pension rules clearer and more consistent for all workers contributing to the fund. Madam Speaker, the key definitions in the new section 24, important terms are clearly defined, such as a pensioner is now 3 categories of people. Every officer who joined or joins the public service on or after 18 May 2012 and contributes to the pension fund. Government auxiliary employees who contributes to the pensions fund. Officers who joined the public service before 18th of May 2012 and who elect to retire at the age of 62 and contribute to the pensions fund. Number 4, application of regulations, section 25. The rules for pensions under this new part use the same general principles as the older pension rules, but now refer to an updated schedule of regulations. Section 26, Madam Speaker, funding of pensions. Pensions under this part are paid from both the general government funds and the special pensions fund. Under Section 27, right to a pension, to qualify automatically for a pension, you must have worked at least 15 straight years. Madam Speaker, this has to be clear so that our workers understand what are the criteria to qualify to receive a government pension. You must have worked for at least 15 straight years. You must have contributed to the pension fund for those years. Madam Speaker, when can you get a pension or gratuity is the next part of it. You will receive your pension when you turn 62 automatically if you worked and contributed for 15 years. So, Madam Speaker, if you come in the service, let's say at 20, and you work up to 35, and you contributed and you leave, and 62, you are qualified for your pension still. No matter where you are in the world, your pension is your pension. And nobody could take it from you. If they want to take it, they got to come back in here. If you resign after at least 10 years, you will receive a gratuity, a one-time payment. So let's say you don't reach up to the 15 years, but you put in 10 years, you will get a full gratuity. But remember, you have to work 15 years to get the pension. And that does not include the time and probation. Now let's look at refunds in the public interest. If you are asked to leave your job in the public service and you aren't eligible for a pension, guess what? You'll get back every cent you put in. Before today, you contributing. If you leave before the time, you don't get back nothing. But today we are saying that if you leave before you're qualified for gratuity, at least what you put in, you should get back. I think that is fair. So you can't lose. You can't lose. And not only that, if something happened to you, God forbid, you have your family members who will get something. Because many times people lose their family members and they ain't get nothing. Not even something to help with the funeral, God forbid. That is how serious this matter is. Retirement age is under Section 30. Everyone covered on this part, your retirement is at age 62. Now the part for the pension and how we thought about it. The pension you receive will be around 40% of your highest salary. 40%. So if you get a pension from other public service, the combined total must not exceed 2/5 of your highest salary. But there's something really good in here for you. Now, remember this is from the government pension, but you can also receive Social Security pension, which is about 60%. 60% plus 40% is how much? So you're going home with the same money. So when you retire, your money ain't dropping. That is big. For us to send you home with about 100% of what you used to work for. So whatever you end working for, that is what you're going to go home to. You all know, when you work, if you're 62 now, before the law passes, and I'm sure we're going to pass this line here today, and you retire, you're not getting any pension. The only thing you're going to get is a 60% from Social Security, and then you start to scratch your head. Lord, last week I used to bring home this amount. I only retired yesterday. Now I'm home, where going to get the rest money from? So you start to say, boy, let me see if I could clean here, let me see if I could do a little thing here. You all know the reality go. But what we are saying is that when we combine your pension plus your Social Security, is your full pay you're going to be getting. Very, very close to your full pay, That is how we thought about it, so that people don't retire in poverty. And you don't have to retire depending on your children, because you know they got their own thing to do too. And then you become a burden on them. And when you become a burden on them, all kind of arguments start to happen. Because the week before you could have buy chicken leg, your money drop, you're going to buy back on it. Problem start. You used to buy fancy milk, now you say, boy, you're asking your neighbor for some milk powder. But we want you to be able to retire in dignity, so they can't cut no style upon you. And you can continue to contribute, and you can retire in dignity. That is why we are bringing this for you for Labor Day 2025. Now, from sections 32 to 36, if you're re-employed after age 62, pension payments will pause. That is normal until you retire again, but because you don't get a full salary. If you retire early due to serious medical reasons with proof, you can still get your pension. So let's say you're working and you have to retire early because you suffer an accident, God forbid. This is life, things happen. We want you to have protection in here. So you ain't worrying about your illness and still, Lord, we're going to get the dollar from. And then you become a burden to your family. We are trying to protect you here. So if your doctor writes and says this is really an illness, can't walk again, this is the situation, this has a provision to protect you. Now, if you are not eligible for a pension because you work for less than 10 years, for less than 15 years, or you're not eligible for gratuity because you work for less than 10 years, you will get back your contribution, guess what? With interest. So you're going to get back more than you put in because you're getting interest with it. You might be asking, well, why are we doing so much for the workers? This is a party about workers. People must live in dignity from the time they're born until the Lord decides they must leave. They have to be given the chance to live in dignity. And if you pass away, God forbid, and have no legal representative, your benefits can be paid to your estate or someone the accountant general approves. So if you pass away, presently if you pass away, nothing. You're aware of that? Nothing. Your family ain't never getting the help to bury the person who have passed. But we are saying in this, that your beneficiaries will now be eligible to receive something. This is transformational. This is to protect you. I'll move on. We join in the pension system. If you have leave your job and return to the public service within a year, you have three options. Repay what you withdrew from the fund, repay and also cover the gap years you miss, keep the refund and start afresh. So you have some choices. So let's say you go home and say, man, I'm going back to the government to work less than a year. You can say, man, let me sit down. The years, I want to put back in the money so I can get my pension at the end and give you the difference. Or, man, that done gone, let me start fresh. And you start your pension again. But at least you have three choices. You must have choices. That is what this is about. The other matter is the application of other rules. General rules like loss of pension if convicted of a crime, becoming bankrupt, or working in sensitive business roles still apply to people in this pension plan. So it doesn't exclude you. Pension laws, powers, and oversight, I want to now touch on section 46 to 48. These sections explain how pension rules apply. The Governor General still has powers to approve or deny pensions. Proof of life is required to keep receiving a pension. You all accustomed to that. If you have your Social Security, every year you go to somebody. Sometimes you can go to your pastor, you can go to the doctor, and they just write to say you're still alive. In every country that exists, because sometimes people can be writing in for people who have passed on and keeping the money. So that is to prevent that. You got fraud like that. This is make sure no fraud happening. In section 50 to 51, the establishment and management of pension fund. The special pensions fund is created to manage contributions. The accountant general oversees it. The fund is audited yearly, and an actuary must review its health every 3 years. If the fund runs short, the government will cover the gap. So it has a lot of protection in it right here. These are the management. Now, section 52, report on pension fund to be tabled annually. The annual report of the accountant general shall be laid by the minister before National Assembly. The Minister of Finance, in this case, myself. Section 53, contributions to be deducted from salary. Every government worker who contributes to the pension fund will have 3% of their salary automatically deducted each month. This money goes into their pension savings. It's a real savings. You ain't gonna lose it. If you stop, you get it back with interest. You cover 10 years, you get a gratuity, and it's going to be more than how much you contributed. And if you reach your pension, you'll get your gratuity plus your pension every month. This is a big savings, this big. This is solid. This is for you to be secured. So you're going to get Social Security, and you're still getting another pension. That is why we are fighting for you, so you can be secured in your retirement. When contributions stop, contributions to pension fund will stop the day a person leaves the public service or that person is to receive a pension. Then you don't have to contribute while you are receiving. Now, section 55, contributions during leave of absence. If you're on unpaid leave, no deductions are made. If you're on educational leave with pay, you must still contribute. If you don't return to work after leave, the time off won't be counted toward your pension. If you do return to work, the leave can count as pensionable time, but only if you work for the same amount of time as the leave you took. Section 56, that's the rate of pension. If you've worked 15 years or more and retire, you'll receive a pension at a rate outlined in the third schedule, a new part of the law that will detail the amounts. Section 57, what counts towards a pension? Only the time you actually worked in the public service counts towards your pension. So the time you worked. Section 58, what time is included in pensionable service? The following count: time on duty, time on paid leave, time on unpaid leave may count if specific rules in section 56 are not met. Section 59, and I'm going through all these sections, but I have to clear them up because those who are listening and want to hear these sections, they must know that this is solid in law. This ain't no fly-by-night and no flimsiness. This is real thing here.
Promise.
Section 59, retirement due to abolition of office. If your job is removed and you are forced to retire, you'll still get a pension at the standard rate. If you don't qualify for a pension, you'll be refunded the money you contributed plus interest. I said that already. Important. Section 60, this deals with application to government agencies. If a public officer is transferred to a government agency like a statutory body, their pension rights are protected. It's as if they never left the public service. Very important. Section 61, officers seconded to agencies. The Public Service Commission can temporarily assign officers to agencies, and these officers will keep their same salary and pension rights. So it means if you're working in the government and they say, you know, the member from number 2, Honorable Minister, say you have to go up to Scaspa to work, you are seconded up there, but you're still governed by the civil service pension laws. Nothing will be lost. So while you're working there, all of what is due to you will be given to you. Section 62, regulations. The Ministry of Finance has the power to make new regulations to help enforce this law. And believe me, I'm going to enforce this law. Section 63, transitional provisions. These protect rights already earned before this new law takes effect. Any pension rights, payments, or entitlements under the old law stay in place. If you work before the law changes, your full service time before and after the new law will still be counted. If you already retired before the new law, it won't affect your benefits. If you don't have a new appointment letter or continued employment letter from the Governor General, the old rules still apply to you. So nobody is disadvantaged. If you came in before 2012 and you are leaving, whatever the rules were then, they apply to you. You will still get your pension at the appropriate time. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that this is critically important. This has brought justice to the GAE workers. This was not an easy bill to put together, and that is why over the many years it might have taken such time. But if I can remember, and I remember well, it is only a Labour administration, and the facts must show on this Labour weekend that is coming up, that puts these type of laws in effect and into play. Let me remind our people that the Labour movement in St. Kitts and Nevis is the first movement officially registered politically, run by our people, that brought democracy to here in St. Kitts and Nevis. In 1932, our people couldn't vote. They say we ain't had no money and we ain't had no education, so we couldn't vote. The Workers' League then, which became the Labour Party afterwards, fought for our workers, fought for fair wages. You might have heard about the Buckley's uprising in 1935. It's Penny Hinckley the people did that uprising for. Because the plantation owners refused to give them their increase that they deserve. And the people said they couldn't take it no more. In 1940 was when the labor union was formed. Because before 1940 it was illegal to have a union. Because once you have a labor union, the union going to mobilize people to ask for better conditions for the workers of this country. This is how far back we go. The labor movement started in 1932 and is the oldest labor movement in the English-speaking Caribbean. It's older than any in Trinidad, older than any in Jamaica, older than any in Barbados, older than any in Bahamas. I call all these countries because some people might look at them as the larger countries of the English-speaking Caribbean. But the St. Kitts labor movement leading all of them. In 2032, we are going to be 100 years. And that is why it is so important to the GAE workers that I invite you out on Labor Day to march. You're not marching for politics. You're marching for your rights as workers. It was the labor movement that brought Social Security to you. Because in those days, people used to retire with zero. No Social Security existed. They had something called the Providence Fund, but that was upgraded to the Social Security in the late 1970s under the labor movement. These are facts. Facts that we must know. It was the labor movement that fought for our people to be able, our workers, to be able to send their children to school. Since in the 1960s, we had comprehensive secondary education. What does that mean? It means that irrespective of who you were, whether you had money or don't have money, you had a right to go to school until you were 16, guaranteed by the government. That was because of the labor movement. The labor movement also fought to get back the land so that today our people can own land in St. Kitts and Nevis. The labor movement fought for our workers to see independence, which started in the 1970s and completed in the 1980s. So this is not just party politics. This is about a movement that seeks to move our workers from one stage in life to another stage in life, continuously improving and advancing on all of these parameters that help to make our lives better here on this earth. And so, the direction is clear. That the point that I'm trying to make here is that we must continue to work to improve the lives of our workers. Madam Speaker, I want to share some facts on this bill because there are some things that must be pointed out. Madam Speaker, is over 2,000 people going to benefit from this? 2,000 people in St. Kitts going to benefit from this. What is the population of St. Kitts? Maybe around 40,000?
14 St. Kitts.
In St. Kitts alone, yes. 36. 2,000 is what percentage? So 2,000 is what percentage of that?
That's 5%.
5%!
Sorry, yes, 5%.
5% of the whole population. So what is the working population? Because it's higher.
No, that's correct. Yeah, 4,000 is 10%.
Yeah? So 5%. He's the maths man. He come out his head even when he doesn't notice. It's bad. And that's the total population. So if we were to calculate the percentage of the working population, it is even higher.
Yes, 10%.
It is at least 10%. So this law alone is going to benefit 10% of our people here in St. Kitts. I mean, that is nothing to sneeze at. That is serious. That we are guaranteeing that 10% of our working people now get this benefit and will not retire in poverty. Madam Speaker, it's hard, I just see how they hold their head when they got to go home, knowing that the only pay they're going to get is from Social Security. It's hard. They don't talk to me all the time. Madam Speaker, look, even from constituency number 7, Madam Speaker, you're going to have the beneficiaries. Kishma Johnson from Tamarako, Faye Isaac from Phillips Village, Nola Matthew from Molyneux, a gentleman named Wixie from Molyneux. Madam Speaker, this bill ain't discriminating. The member from number 7 had the chance to give these people a pension and he refused to give them.
That's correct.
Madam Speaker, I see some good people over in that quote. I see Simmons over there. She doesn't have to respond. I see Letty over there. You know who named Letty? Madam Speaker, these people are waiting for the pension. This law does not look to whether you are supporting this party or that party. This law covers our workers in this country. This is about everybody, Madam Speaker. 2,000 people at least to benefit. Hundreds of GAEs already receiving their pension, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have laid out some of the facts with respect to this. There was a lady, I can remember her very clearly, Miss Claudette Vanterpool from Upper Keon, who used to work as a nursing assistant or aide. She used to visit the homes, take the blood pressure, do multiple things for the people for years. Claudette walk in the street. Walk in the street, get foot pain and back pain and all sorts of things. Looking after people. And then after all those years, you tell Claudette, nothing for you. But in addition to that, that makes it even worse, is that under unity, they decrease the amount of gratuity that Claudette should have gotten. And that is why I think it's 2 years ago, right here in the street, in front of government headquarters, we reinstituted that. We took them up to NEMA and we give them the balance of their check. And so she can retire in dignity. That is what we are saying. Madam Speaker, there's another lady, I can't remember the name now. I wonder if she's in the crowd here. because she was afraid to retire. She said she not retire.
He got a couple, a bunch downstairs, you know.
Oh, there's some downstairs?
A big group
A
downstairs.
big, well, they can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay,
they
good.
can see you.
I'm sure she might have.
Don't tell them, they
Yes.
can hear what I say. So
Okay.
you're talking to them downstairs.
I'm talking to you downstairs as well because maybe she's downstairs. Every time she see me, she say, Prime Minister, I'm not going home until I get my pension. And I know she didn't want to go home for a particular reason because she knows if she goes home, the only thing that she would have is the social security. Should I walk up by? Yes. Up by Newtown. So the honorable member from number 1 knows her very well. And I want to say to her that after today, when we pass this bill into law, you can retire with peace and tranquility. Let me tell you why we brought this. And if I look at the numbers, when they did the actuary, the pension is substantial based on your salary. And I said, look, when people get their pension, it must be of a certain amount. You'll be surprised. We had 2 options. The Labour Party and the Labour movement is about strengthening workers. The way you strengthen workers is by increasing their wages and giving them proper pension and protection. Those are the best ways to do it. This is what the Labour movement believes in. And to create a pension that is sustainable, and you have in law that you must get it. Now let's say you have some government social program that somebody can decide if you get it today and you get it tomorrow based on how much money the government has. That is not sustainable. That is risky. That makes you vulnerable. But when you have a pension, it is in law. And people can cut it when they want and take it out when they want and treat you how you want. You have legal rights passing law. And that is why this is so important that we have this passing law so that you can benefit. This will ensure that our workers continue to advance. And that is why I'm inviting all of you to march on Labor Day. You're not marching, you're marching for your rights. You're marching because you fight for this. Tell the people I fight for it and I get it. And I come to show the people that I get it. That is what you're going to be marching for. You're marching for your own advancement. And the reason why I call these names from this particular constituency, let us be real, is to show that we're not discriminating against anybody. The law covers everybody. Has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that you have worked and contributed and should be given the right to your pension. It is going to bring dignity to you and dignity to your family as well. And therefore, I want to wrap up this first part of the debate, and I have some more to come back on later when I wrap up the debate, because I have much more, but I'll give other members to chime in on this most important bill that we are passing here today, just before Labor Day, just before the Workers' Day, just before the day what is recognized as a day that workers are important and at the center of any country and its development. And so, Madam Speaker, let me wrap up this part by saying again to all of the GAE workers who are here, who people don't know, who don't recognize. These are the people again who are our crossing guards. See how nice they look here in the blue. Parks and beaches workers who keep our country looking clean. The maids at the hospital, the cleaners in offices, those who keep the drains clean, the messengers, the school bus drivers, the school meal workers.
The workers at public works.
Workers as public works as well. I'm sure you'll add on that.
Yeah.
Wherever you are in your GAE, you are eligible for this. I will say that you deserve it. You have worked for it. Yes. And this Labour administration is happy to deliver it to you, the hard-working GAE workers, for this government of ours. Thank you very much.